My name is Martha Maddox. I'm the Associate Dean for the Goodfriend School of Business. It's my pleasure to welcome each of you to the 9th annual Goodfriend Lecture Series this morning in memory of Dr. Morris Goodfriend. It's an honor to have each of you here today, and I'd like to recognize our current and former Board of Trustee members. And if you will, please stand. We'll give you a round of applause. And we're so glad that each of you are here today, and we appreciate you being here. So at this time, I've asked Reverend Dr. Vant Hardaway to come and give our invocation.
Get all that out of it. And you don't need to. Well, good morning. It is still barely morning. I'm going to go ahead and say I've got a compliment this morning, and on the agenda, they told me Dr. Dan was to do that invocation, and so I'll just act like I'm him, but it's a compliment to me, and we'll keep him in our thoughts. If you will, let's just go to God in prayer. Lord, as we are blessed to assemble today here at Tennessee Western University in this special event, remembering significant history and all kinds of things that have gone on in the life of this university. We thank you for the life of Dr. Goodfriend and what this series means. We do not take your favor for granted that we're here today in a good time and a good fellowship, even in difficult times in our world, in our nation, even in our local community, but especially in our campus. As we have here, come to here to celebrate and recognize our current president, TWU, as we hear from him, we endeavor to help continue to prepare special student leaders for life as they go on. Bless our fellowship here today, and we ask that you bless the food to the nourishment of our body, and bless us to your service. In Jesus Christ's name we pray. All help me say amen.
Good morning or good afternoon now.
Afternoon,
And
it's almost perfectly good.
that's right. I appreciate all of you coming today. A lot of familiar faces. A lot of people have been here. I'm not going to go on and on about my dad, but I will tell you that it's been almost 9 years since he passed away, and he was a real trooper all of his life. For those that haven't heard it before, he was a giver, not a taker. He supported his friends. He supported the city of Athens. The baseball field up there, all the dirt came from when we built the Goodies store in 1987, and all that dirt was moved from Congress Parkway to here for the baseball field. But Dad knew no strangers. He helped numerous people throughout his life and never asked for a thing, as we all should do what we can do in that respect. I will tell you that every day goes by, I say, well, I lost a business partner, and I lost my father, but most of all, I lost my best friend. And I can say that to the day, and I can remember there was one time I got into it with my dad in all the years, and I've lived to regret it to this day. So the love and the respect that he offered me, the chance to succeed in my life was unbelievable, and what he did for this area was tremendous. So I appreciate my dad being notarized here today and every year. It means so much, and it means a lot to the college. But before I step down, I just want you to know that today is a special day. It's a special day for Harley Knowles. I have come to know him, respect him, and I thank him for all that he has done here at Tennessee Wesleyan University. It's been a tremendous, almost 11 years, and the university would not be shaped as it is today without you, Dr. Knowles.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
With all that said, I appreciate you all coming. I hope you enjoy the program. And I told Harley nobody was going to get up, even if he talked for an hour. Y'all have a great day and a great week.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
Hello, my name is Dr. Martha Maddox. I'm the Associate Dean of the Goodfriend School of Business. Welcome to the 9th Annual Goodfriend Lecture Series. It's my honor to introduce our speaker, Dr. Harley Knowles, the 20th President of Tennessee Wesleyan. Dr. Knowles will always hold a special place in our hearts. Under his leadership, we have watched Tennessee Wesleyan transform and the Goodfriend School of Business evolve with it. The business school is the largest program on campus with approximately 25% of the university's population. Since becoming our president in 2011, Dr. Knowles has worked tirelessly to help grow the business school through the various initiatives developed by faculty as well as those that he helped us imagine. Join me on a trip down memory lane to see how instrumental he's been for our academic programs, facilities, community, faculty, and students. Academically, the Goodfriend School of Business has grown tremendously by adding several new emphases for our students, including industrial management and digital marketing. We expanded our footprint by gaining approval to teach in Cleveland for the Management Excellence Program, which is our degree completion program for working adults. We've also updated articulation agreements with Cleveland State, Chattanooga State, and Pellissippi State, improving our regional partnerships and easing the transfer process for many of our students. We created our Masters of Business Administration program. Today, our graduate program offers concentrations in accounting, marketing, management, and a general track. We know that our students will be leaders in a variety of industries, and we've developed our programs to ensure they're equipped to excel. For instance, those that are graduating in Human Resource Management can take pride knowing that our curriculum is certified by the Society for Human Resource Management. Our entrepreneurship minor is available to students from any discipline. It allows them to combine the knowledge of their field with the skills they need to start a business when they graduate. Of course, we cannot forget last year's reaffirmation from our accrediting body, SAC-COC, that was completed with no recommendations, a rare occurrence in higher ed. In terms of facilities, the generosity of Mrs. Jenny Elliott and her family have enabled us to renovate the 3rd floor of Elliott Hall. Their gifts have enriched the educational experience for both faculty and students. On the 3rd floor of Elliott, Dr. Knowles and I designed and created the Jenny Elliott Financial Center, the Brian Jackson Classroom, and the 24-seat seminar room named in honor of Dr. Bobby and Mrs. Wendy Goodfriend. All the restrooms in Elliott have been renovated, which has been a huge blessing since our building previously served as a university's men's dorm. Another transformation that has taken place in the basement of Elliott Hall is now dubbed the Lighthouse 2.0. This space is now our largest classroom, meeting the social distancing requirements of our students during the pandemic, and we recently have had a new HVAC system installed in Elliott Hall. Outside of Elliott Hall, Dr. Knowles was instrumental in the creation of the Lighthouse, an entrepreneurial ecosystem which has significantly expanded our presence in downtown Athens. The Lighthouse started as an empty space on White Street belonging to Mr. and Mrs. Scotty Mayfield, but it's evolved into a delightful working space for many community members and Tennessee Wesleyan students. All these physical changes have created an ideal space for learning and teaching for our students, faculty, and the community. In 2014, Dr. Knowles and I discussed having a lecture series to honor Dr. Morris Goodfriend, the event that we celebrate today. The Goodfriend Lecture Series recognizes the importance of entrepreneurship and ethics in business settings. That same year, we created a Distinguished Entrepreneur Award. It's been an honor to celebrate such remarkable recipients, including Dr. Bob Goodfriend, Thunder Thornton, Claire Tucker, Hugh Keener, the Honorable Carl Collins, Carol Apasol, Johnny Holden, and Shirley Woodcock. In 2016, Dr. Goodfriend gave a generous gift to change our name from the Department of Business Administration to the Goodfriend School of Business. We are proud that through this honor, his family and their story is part of our students' stories. I mentioned the Lighthouse when talking about our physical growth, but it's been central to our community expansion. The Lighthouse stands for Leading Innovators to Excel, and it was created in 2018 with the leadership of Dr. Knowles, faculty members, community leaders, and generous donors. More than $300,000 in grants have been raised for the Lighthouse to be a part of our community. This entrepreneurial ecosystem hosts everything from private offices, co-working spaces, recording booths, and it's a hub for business workshops and community events. Today, the Lighthouse serves Tennessee Wesleyan students, faculty, staff, and the greater Athens community. Dr. Knowles also collaborated with Mr. Rick and B.J. Galbraith, whose gifts have enhanced our approach to teaching finance to students. The Galbraiths donated the financial stock ticker for the Jeannie Elliott Financial Center, in addition to giving $100,000 to start the Bulldog Investment Club. The Bulldog Investment Club is a student-led organization that gives students the opportunity to invest in the stock market. Participants perform market research and then determine which stocks that they would like to purchase. Working closely with faculty advisors, the students invest substantial capital and watch how the market impacts their investments in real time. Our students have made great decisions so far, and their investments have seen significant growth. Another part of preparing our students to be global leaders is exposing them to domestic and international travel. Through the generosity of the Goodfriend family, we have taken students and faculty to the New York Stock Exchange for a private tour of the trading floor and facility for several years. Students and faculty have traveled to San Antonio, Los Angeles, Chicago, Nashville, and New York City for conferences with Phi Beta Lambda, a national business fraternity for college students. We have taken international students on domestic trips in the United States to Atlanta, Nashville, and Washington, D.C. For several years prior to the pandemic, we took students to countries such as England, Scotland, Ireland, Switzerland, France, Austria, Germany, Italy, Greece, Africa, Spain, Portugal, Australia, and New Zealand. These trips have been awesome opportunities for our students, especially as many of them have never traveled internationally. Our students have reaped so many benefits from the attention of Dr. Knowles and the support of our donors. Faculty have played a huge part in all of these initiatives, and you will hear me say many times that I have the best faculty on campus. They are committed to developing themselves professionally, as we've had 6 individuals pursue more education and one who received her PhD since teaching with us. These educational endeavors were financially supported by Dr. Knowles and the university, and for that we are so grateful. As most of you know, I have been at Tennessee Wesleyan most of my professional life. Dr. Knowles has been the most supportive leader for the business school and our program in my time at Tennessee Wesleyan. I could continue to discuss the future of the Goodfriend School of Business that Dr. Knowles and I have imagined for longer than you would care to listen. We have accomplished so much together. I am so thankful that Dr. Knowles is a visionary and truly wants what is best for our university. It has been an honor to work with Dr. Knowles and move our programs forward. It is my pleasure to celebrate Dr. Harley Knowles today. I look forward to hearing him discuss ethics in higher education and the challenges that he has faced during his tenure as a university president. Please welcome Dr. Harley Knowles.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. Thank you. No question a labor of love. And you know, if you achieve anything in organizations, it takes a village. And most of the village is here right now. All of you have been part of the successes. It's these partnerships, it's the contributions, it's some vision, and we can make amazing things happen at this university and across this region. So I thank you all very much. I'm humbled. I get way too much credit, but I appreciate it very, very much. And I do want to recognize the brains of the operation, my wife, Cindy Colson. How about a round of applause to Cindy? for the students, it's always important when you marry up. I married way up, and I'm blessed every day. And then we have a number of trustees. Dr. Goodfriend was mentioned several times in the video. A lot of what has happened here, particularly with business, wouldn't have happened without Dr. Goodfriend and then Thunder and Jeff and Al, and the list goes on and on. Folks who are right there pushing, helping bring people together, bring resources together to make these things happen. And so just proud to have that happen here at this institution. I'm wrapping up. I'm pretty excited about that. They say you're supposed to know when it's time to wrap up. We've had some great successes, and with Dr. Goodfriend as our chair and a really strong board, it's a perfect time to invite candidates to come and take it to another level. And we have a great executive team, and I'm certain that will happen. My topic is to talk a little bit about ethics, and it's something I've cared about a long time. Dr. Mashburn knows when you're dean of students or a vice president of student affairs in higher education, you talk to students all the time about doing the right thing, because you spend a fair amount of time with people who don't do the right thing, right? And they're during the formative time, and so you really want to intervene, help them make good decisions so that they don't get in a lot of trouble later in life. And so it's a real formative time, and he does a spectacular job. And it's something that I've cared about for a long time. So that's what I'm going to share with you is a little bit about ethics. If I can get this thing off here. Yeah, thank you. I got a little video I'm going to share with you. Some of you may be familiar with this video. I'm pretty sure most. Maybe the students, I'm not sure. We'll see what happens. See what you know. Before I get to the video, I do want to just review the 4 messages. Basically, the importance of modeling the way. Many of you folks have been in business, been leaders a long time. You know the importance of that. Wake up every day demonstrating to everybody that you're doing the right ethical thing. Because behaviors turn into practices, turn into habits, turn into culture. And winning ethical culture produces amazing results. And then make a commitment to a principled life, right? Have you thought much about your principles, what you care about? My audience today is primarily students, but I think all of us need to think about that. If there were 5 or 10 principles you could put down right now, which would be on your list? What's your code of ethics? And then exercise value-based leadership. Live your values. Hugh Queener a couple years ago talked about that, and I'm stealing a little bit from that idea. What are your values? What do you care about? And how do you live those? How do you act affirmatively on those values as a leader, as a new professional, in your organization, and then act affirmatively to strengthen others. One of the great gifts you have as a college-educated person is the opportunity to affect the lives of others. That's why we're on this earth, and you can do that through your organization. And you know very well the importance of that, because probably somebody acted affirmatively for you, gave you a shot when nobody else would give you a shot, and you made it happen. So I'm just here to remind you all to do that as well whenever you can, because our world needs it. I'm going to share a little video, and then we'll talk about it. Whoops. We go back up here, sorry. Should it just play, Scott? Okay. Okay, doesn't look like it's going to play.
There it goes. Now click it.
Roger that.
Try to look at it from my side, will you? You see, you broke the law. Now let me finish. Now it's from little misdemeanors that major felonies grow. And it's my duty, it's anybody's duty, to stop them before they get too far. Now the law must be upheld. Now if I, as just plain John Doe, an ordinary citizen, were to see you making a U-turn, I'd have to make a citizen's arrest. Or you'll be a better man if you'll try to think of us all working together for a common cause.
He's very proud of himself.
You making your turn as a law-abiding citizen, it's my duty to call you. You're supposed to be setting the example for the rest of us. Now, Gomer, just a minute. This little black and white baby here is a real emergency vehicle. Now, why don't you just stop trying to get even? But you weren't on no emergency call. You made a mistake, didn't you? Now, write yourself out deep. Kevin, you hear that, folks? There are two sets of law. One for the police and one for the ordinary citizen. Move here, move. Here's something to say to the public. There ought to be another law that covers that.
So people like that, you're supposed to set an example.
That's what I'm saying.
What happened?
Oh, nothing. Here come running after me screaming, citizens arrest! He made an illegal U-turn while he wasn't on no emergency. He's just sorry because I'm thinking the same thing. Well, yeah,
Hold it down. Marty, this thing's getting blown up way out of proportion. I think you better write yourself a ticket and we'll go in the courthouse and settle it in private. You're kidding. I'm just trying to save us both on embarrassment. You're kidding.
Well, you're gonna make him write himself a ticket, or ain't you?
Marty, the more you fuss about it, the bigger it's getting.
and he may give himself a ticket.
Stay out of this, Gomer.
I may be a man.
Marty, write out the ticket.
You're kidding.
Marty, please write out the ticket. Folks expect it now.
Okay, I'll write it out. You're darn right, I'll write it out. I'll write it out, all right. You make a fool out of me because some fool. It's calling the night.
I think you get the point there. So in this scenario, who's the hero in your mind? Who's the hero? For me, I think, who is it? Andy, definitely. He's always the hero, right? He's always trying to smooth things out, make everything okay. Who else is a hero? I think Gomer is, you know. He's standing up. He's speaking truth to power. There's a lot of risk in our world to step out when it's unpopular. Although he had a pretty good chorus. Did you hear them all there? That it's funny. Where did all those people come from all of a sudden? But apparently they were not supportive of Barney. What are the mistakes Barney's making? Right? It's the double standard. What's the other one? He forgets he's in a fishbowl. He's being watched constantly. And when you're a leader, when you're a public figure, etc., you're under the microscope all the time, and you can never forget that. Because people will point it out to you, just like certainly in that situation. So they say that courage is to act in the face of fear. It takes a lot of courage to stand out and to say something when it's a little unpopular. Leaders do it all the time, but it's really hard to do. So I got a question for you. How many of you wash your hands? Raise your hands. How many of you wash your hands? Not yet. Good, Ashley, I'm not done yet. How many of you wash your hands just before you leave a public restroom? Raise your hand if you do that regularly. Okay. So the reality is all the data shows that really only about 70%, all the studies indicate about 70% of people do that. So if this were a representative sample, and I'm not sure it is, but if it were, that would mean about 30% of you, because almost everybody raised their hands, are kind of fibbing a little bit, right? Now, why would you do that in a setting like this? Why? In part because of pressure to conform. You feel some pressure. You don't want to be the one saying, I'm too lazy to do that. I'm getting, right? So you put your hand up. I mean, I would too. Now, there are certain situations where you would not wash your hands, right? You ever be in one of those where you looks like a murder just occurred and you're like, I'm getting out the door, you know? So, but certainly it's a good idea. But there's a lot of pressure to say the right thing, particularly in group settings, organizations. You don't want to rock the boat. So one thing I like to talk about is thinking about what are your non-negotiables. Have you ever thought about that? If you had to put down the things that you will not compromise in terms of what you believe in, what you really stand for as a person, particularly if you're a young professional. There's probably many times you really haven't thought about that because you haven't been tested in those kind of ways. But you will at some point. All of us are. Mayor Gentry just came in. He's tested all the time. What is fair? How do we share resources? How do we get some things done when we can't do all things? Does that sound familiar? Many of you are in that situation if you run companies or run organizations, or even if you run a small unit in a company or run a bank. So here's the list. I'm not going to go over all these, obviously, but here's some things that you might give some consideration to. Do no harm, do not lie, cheat, and steal. Pretty common sense. We'd all do that. How about this one? Do not gossip. It seems like that's an unusual one, right? In organizations, lots of that goes on at the water cooler. They still have water coolers? I'm not sure. But anyway, not a good idea. What if that were part of your code of ethics that says, I'm just not going to engage in that? Because it can be hurtful to people. They're sometimes not true, etc. The other one I want to mention, and I'll come back to some of these a little bit later, but is to do the right thing even when no one is looking. So I had a situation, and I'm just as broken as anybody is. I make mistakes. But I was at Lowe's, and I filled up my cart full of stuff, went to the cashier, paid for everything, got out to the car, and I discovered an item in there wasn't on the receipt. So I obviously didn't pay for it. It was worth about $1.50. It was a little chain hanging from, that I was going to put on my cellar light, the thing you pull when the light comes on. And it was down in the bottom of the cart. She didn't see it, etc. So what did I do? I'm out at the car, kind of a hot day. I'm way out in the parking lot. What do you think I did? I went back in. So why did I do that? No one would have known, etc. I'm nothing special, but because this is the way I've chosen to live. I'm going to do it no matter if anybody's looking. Cindy makes a little fun of me on those things on occasion because it can get a little silly, I suppose. But I really feel emboldened by that. Like, I'm doing the right thing. And the more you do that, the more comfortable it is, the better it is. So cutting corners never is a good idea, obviously. I'm not going to get all nerdy on you, I promise you. But there are a couple theories that are fun to think about. There's a basis for some of this. So Perry's theory, basically, when you're a college student, you come in, you're kind of dualistic. Everything's black and white. Multiplistic, you move to maybe your sophomore year, junior year, you start to see lots of answers to problems. And then you discover it's a relative world, right? There's lots of gray out there. And then ultimately you realize as an adult that you have to make a commitment to this relative world and that you need to come up with your principles that you really care about, right? That's usually like your senior year in graduate school. So if you're not there, you want to get there as quickly as you can. Be thinking about what you really care about. Here's another one. If you took a psychology class, you might be familiar with this. Step one, that's like younger than 6 years old. But you probably know adults like this. The only reason they don't do things is because they're fearful they're going to get in trouble, right? That's the lowest level of moral reasoning. The top level is, look at that, principles again, principles of conscience. And that's where obviously you want to get to as quickly as you can. And thinking about what's on your list, what are the principles that you will not compromise. So the biggies, living your values. Hugh Queener talked about this a little bit. It's about living your values. What is it you care about? In his company, they put it in evaluations. They make it something that part of the interview process for any new employees, etc. So here are some that are very common that won't be a surprise to you. I'm only going to talk about 2 of them, though. Promise keeping. Do you know people who regularly say they're going to do things and they don't do it? In fact, it's kind of a joke within the company or in the organization or on your team or in your class. That person never follows through. So, and you also know people who always follow through. You can count on them. I work with a lot of colleagues like that here. And those folks we call are what? Go-to people. They get it done every time. You can count on them every single time. And that's the kind of person you want to be, right? I'm talking to the students here. So as you go out, when you make a promise, always follow through. If you're given a task, if you're a project lead or whatever, make sure you get it done. It's never sometimes at the speed you want. Sometimes obstacles come up. You have to try something different, but always follow through. The other one is I want to talk about equity a little bit. There's a lot of that discussed in our world, and I think about it real simply, right? Equity is different than equality. Equality means you treat everybody the same. Equity is different. It recognizes circumstances are different. So if you come from a relatively poor family from Maine, grew up in the woods, have a mediocre high school, and then you meet somebody who went to Baylor High School in this state and learns Chinese and all kinds of things that you can't imagine ever learning in your high school, you realize that they are way above you in all kinds of ways and have all kinds of advantages that you don't. But then somebody takes a chance on you. Somebody helps you. Somebody mentors you. And even though you're not ready, they give you a job. And then you flourish, right? You all know stories like that. And many of you have stories like that, or folks who are very successful. Somebody took a shot and took a chance. And that's the only thing I'm saying here, is I really encourage folks to really give that consideration. Look around. Who could you mentor? Who could you help? That with a little bit of attention. Alan Carter's sitting here. I don't really know anybody who does more than that man for our students. He's had more students. I don't even know how many of our graduates work in his organization, and internships. I mean, you name it. He puts them to work, and he gives them a shot. And some of them are international, where it's a little bit harder to get employment. It's just amazing what he does. That's equity work right there. And if we all do that, the world's a little better. Amen. So what I'm really talking about here is building your brand, right? Have you thought about your brand? I'm talking to students again, of course. What is your brand? What would people say about you when you're not in the room? That you're a promise keeper, words and actions align. Your word is your bond, right? Fair in dealings, right down the line. I like this one. Share the success with colleagues and shoulders the failures. If you want to build loyalty with your team and your organization, even if you're a new professional, share the success. Never take it all, because it's never just you. Just like a few minutes ago, it's never just me. You know, I'll try to pitch in and do my part and be a promise keeper, but it's tons of folks who are working with you to get things done. And then finally, results oriented. Because that's really important, results. All these organizations, right? You got to get results because your organization is dependent on you. But it's not just that. You got to achieve them ethically, right? Stating the obvious. Here's Warren Buffett, the older brother of Jimmy Buffett. Paul, that was one of the jokes. Barely giggled. Usually he's like Ed McMahon. Yes, yes. Some of you know Paul. We love him. And looking for people to hire, look for three qualities: integrity, intelligence, energy. And if they don't have the first, the other two will kill you, right? Which means they're rudderless, they're unscrupulous. They'll do whatever it takes, but they don't have a code, right? There are no boundaries. Dangerous people, particularly in organizations like financial organizations that he might be involved in. A lot of this begins with knowing yourself, right? It all begins that. Great leaders are really focused in first on their own vessel, putting their values, their principles together, and then they take that toolkit out to the world. And here we're really talking about what is it that you know about yourself. And here's some a little bit challenging questions. Sorry, it's after dessert, but when will you look the other way? When will there be an incident in your company or in your unit or on your team or wherever it might be where you would look the other way? What small indiscretions? General Wallace, who did the speech last year, talked a little bit about this. People who committed fraud sometimes started with little things, stealing things from work, embezzling a little bit of money, and then it ended up they had a house full of things they bought with all this money they took from the company or from the government in her case. So When will you look the other way? When is a white lie acceptable? I can give you 3 times. You ready? Golf. It's always acceptable. So if you play with me, Sonny knows what I'm talking about. It's always acceptable. You can fudge that as much as you want. We all do it. It's no big deal. Unless you're Shane Sewell, and he's an awesome golfer, and he never fudges because he's awesome. So that's why he's on my team all the time. The other time, golf, fishing is the other time. How many you catch and how big they are. If you're a fisherman, you know what I'm talking about. And the third one is if your spouse, your partner comes out and says, how do I look in this outfit, right? It's in your best interest to say, dear, you look really great. And I never do that, Cindy. I'm always lead with integrity. But anyway, the rest are all self-explanatory. But it starts with looking in about where you stand on these kind of things and what your code is. A few admonitions. I'm not going to go over all of these, but there's a lot of pressure, as I talked about with the example of, do you wash your hands or not? Don't succumb to that pressure. Try to understand it, take a deep breath, try to figure out, talk to a mentor, what should I do? But don't succumb to the pressure when it's time to stand for something and say something, because something's inappropriate. Be prepared to leave rather than participate. How bad does it have to be? If you know there's embezzlement or, theft, whatever it might be, inappropriate jokes, whatever it might be, the environment is not in alignment with what you care about is in terms of your values. When would you actually leave or go find another job? And don't forget that silence is often mean agreement. So when you don't do something, particularly if you're in a leadership position, people are going to see that as that you're in agreement, obviously. And this one, I'm astounded by how many politicians, governors, you name it, they're politicians, of course, is keep your hands and your words to yourself. Our whole culture has that going on all the time. And it's inexcusable, right? Just don't do it. And because there's no getting back from that. At some point, that will be a problem for you. And the rest are all pretty straightforward. So I just have a couple more slides. And this is thinking about what are some of the behaviors, things that you want to do to create a success culture wherever you work. And so I started thinking about what are some of the things that are kind of in my bucket that I think about in terms of working with other people. And they're kind of soft and huggy, and I apologize for that. But they're often not talked about very much. But people care about them tremendously. When I'm on the receiving end, I loved it. And you can see these things. They're very affirming kind of things. But at the essence of it is your deep concern for other people in your organization and their productivity. And taking a little bit of time and quit thinking about the future as much and making sure you do plenty of appreciation, etc. And then ultimately, the key, which I think there's a real shortage of many organizations, is this idea of subordinating your own ambitions for those of the organization or the team, right? So if you come to a college campus, you look, sometimes not ours, of course, but others, where do faculty park? Close to the classes. Where do students park? As far out as possible. Is that a little wacky? It's wrong. And that's just one little tiny example. Is you taking care of your own self-interest before you think about students, in our case, or your customers, or your employees, etc. It's just deciding to put yourself in the back. Because what happens is, at least I've found in my career, the more you attend to other people, what happens? They're loyal, they attend, they take care of you. Because you get the performance, everything starts to happen if you take care of and forget about your own ambitions. Doesn't mean completely, but set them aside most of the time, certainly. And then finally, a little word about team leadership. I don't have to tell you, earlier I spoke to this a little bit about the village, and I think this is really the case, right? You never get there alone. And more importantly, any success that you have, it's a whole lot more fun to celebrate that success with other people. But there are plenty of people who get to the top of the mountain and they look back and what? Nobody's there. They forgot to bring people with them, to involve other people, and then to celebrate their accomplishments. And so they don't get a chance to participate. And then finally, the last one there, strengthening others, is preparation for success. That as a manager, as a leader in any organization, you should wake up every day thinking about how do I strengthen other people to be more successful. It's a lot of fun, for one. And that's where the performance is, right? So if you're a leader in an organization, what are you? You're a talent development specialist. Your job is to help, as we used to say in higher ed, work yourself out of a job. The more you do that, and I've done that here. I'm almost done in a couple months. I'm working myself out of a job. Scott, am I right?
Yes, sir.
That was the wrong answer. I like Cousys and Posner's quote here. How will you be remembered? What people say about you will not be about what you achieve for yourself, but what you achieve for others. Not how big a campfire you built, but how well you kept others warm. And I think that's a really critical. For many of you very successful people here, when I've talked to you about your organizations and your success, you spend a lot of time talking about how you took care of your people. And that's what a leader does, takes care of his or her people. And of course, go blue. So thank you all very much. I appreciate it. Oh, goodness. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it, because I got another 30 minutes, so no, I'm kidding. Martha almost had a heart attack there.
Oh, my goodness. And you took my breath away there for a second. Okay. What do I do here? All right. So thank you so much, Dr. Knowles,
Sure.
for your time with us today and speaking on ethics in higher education. Even though I've watched that video multiple times, it just makes me very emotional to think about everything that we've been able to accomplish
Together.
And we've had a lot of times together, and it's been just a very good ride with Dr. Knowles, supporting us as much as he had from the Goodfriend School. And so this is a small token of our
Great.
appreciation.
Thank you.
And we thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you.
So thank you all today for coming. It was a wonderful day, and we were so glad that we were able to honor your dad, Dr. Goodfriend, and having Dr. Knowles give his presentation. So thank you. I'd like to thank Aramark for the wonderful food that they provided for us today. Also want to thank JJ. I'm not sure if he's in here right now, but he was very patient with me in developing the video, so I want to make sure that he gets a shout out for that as well. And to student services and for IT for all of their prep and getting our room together and our facilities and so forth. I appreciate everything that they've done for us to make today so wonderful. So I'm just so appreciative of all of you being here today, and I want to recognize our students. If you will please stand, we want to give you a shout out as well. Leaders, and so they're doing wonderful things over in Elliott Hall and make us proud every day. We are very thankful that you're here with us too. So thank you all so much for being here, and we look forward to seeing you next year. And Dr. Knowles has assured me he's going to be around, and so hopefully we'll have him back with us next year to celebrate as well. So thank you again. Thank you.